So if I recall correctly, I woke up at some time around 7-ish in the morning. Either way, I was able to get in some work on my ceramic shoe for roughly 1 35-minute shift at the visual art experience room. I believe for that shift, I focused on painting the bottom of my ceramic shoe. I'm now done with the project, but I don't have it with me because the painted ceramic shoe is now it was turned in and will be graded within a week or two, I would imagine. And here's the paper I used to finish painting the ceramic shoe. And quite a bit before reaching that point, there were at least 2 occasions in which some paper got stuck on my ceramic shoe, got stuck to the wet paint, and I had to paint over the stuck bits of paper. Here's the shoe I used to paint the ceramic shoe. This is something I used to study for the chapter 15 or lesson 15 or lesson, I believe, Keen's Torske. The Spanish word for the number 15. It's not easy to get it to the subconscious mind. I've been exposed to the word before, but not in quite a while, so I'm not entirely sure of it. The most recent event of today I remember was that someone stopped by to do what's called an occupancy check. Occupancy check. This is where basically there was this organized list of residents for Eagle Hall, and someone stops by at the different rooms to check, to have them sign to verify that they still live in Eagle Hall. This happened around 7:20 p.m., though they then stopped by again within a few minutes later, as the occupancy check was unexpected for me. I was in the middle of solving as many essentially as many tournament encounters I could without marble. I'm currently critically low on marble. I have 2 offers for 40,000 steel in exchange for 40,000 marble. And I believe I might have a smaller offer somewhere. But as of right now, nobody's accepting it. I currently have plans to build the two Dwarven Ancient Wonders, but so far I don't have all the runes for either of them. I made a quick stop at the Nest after getting my food from Harrison Dining Hall to get these, with the intent of trying out the remaining flavors they had available at the Nest. Today's Intermediate Spanish 2 class was online through Zoom. During the meeting, we kicked off today's class by briefly going over a cultural Spanish reading featuring a writing part of a short story by someone in Colombia who's known for essentially being the father of realistic magic. Initially, I thought this was a blending of nonfiction writing and fantasy writing. So sort of like a fusion of, as I described it, the kind of stories you would expect in nonfiction fused with fantasy elements, such as the exact example I gave, Lord of the Rings. Excuse me, that's pretty much the original in fantasy writing. At least in my mind, it is. And here's where I am currently on the technology tree. Can't activate this technology because I have no marble. Magic egg. Isn't... I would have thought that Phoenix Call event was over by now. But in reality, this author is actually the grandfather of writings that combine real-life events with the mythology or superstitions people believe in a particular area. Based off of what little context I got of the short story, I felt that it was about someone serving in the army during a conflict, it seemed. This is actually part of an activity we did before we briefly went over essentially part of the first paragraph of that short story. And then there was the Chapter 15 quiz. I should spend my last diastance a coin rate of 10%. I fully expect that Phoenix event to be over. It isn't, oddly enough. The Chapter 15 quiz it was through 2 assignments posted on VHL Central. We were given more than enough time to complete those 2 short activities for that quiz. Although, oddly enough, it seemed to test me on more than just the things I studied. Specifically, the 2 indicative tenses, present perfect and past perfect, which essentially requires remembering past participles, that form of conjugation for Spanish verbs, which essentially is just remembering these irregular past participles. These are for the present perfect, and these are for the past perfect. Yo, tú, usted, él, ella. Nosotros, ustedes, ellos, ellas. I actually ripped this piece off after writing my entire name, including the full middle name on it, to put in my completed ceramic shoe. Art class did not consist of, as I expected, a critique of their ceramic shoes, but in fact, a lengthy PowerPoint done through a pretty old Mac computer or / projector on essentially the elements and principles of design we'd be focusing on for our abstract painting project. After the PowerPoint, in which I did try to take notes, but the professor for our visual art experience class tends to go too fast for me to properly take notes during PowerPoints. This is what I wrote down. You're supposed to hit a balance between unity and variety. too much unity, and your painting becomes visually boring. Too much variety, and it becomes chaotic and unpleasant for the viewers. This is my first draft, the first sketch I came up for the abstract painting. Essentially, jotting down random things as they popped up into my head. I'm not entirely sure if there's any other proper way to do it. Maybe thorough research or whatnot, but I didn't give myself the time for that. I tried to lean more towards the variety side of the spectrum, because in a way I actually intentionally wanted to create something chaotic. But the professor had a problem with... I actually drew this cloud in response to a concern about having some organic shapes, a need for organic shapes. So I drew in this cloud. I drew in a heart. It's something that came to me randomly. I drew in these arrows. And actually these circles within a circle within that organic shape, those are things the professor actually drew on. So I went and took her advice, and made this second draft to try to put in more unity. And actually I'm intentionally trying to do this sort of linear perspective to add some depth going into the center. This time it was pretty much all me. I actually changed that part from this as a sort of way to make that thing in that corner have less visual weight. So by next class I'm expected to have two more completely different ideas. The problem with the cloud, the arrows, and the heart is that they go beyond just being geometric shapes. The heart represents love. The arrows we recognize as being directions. And a cloud is a physical thing. But there was no problem with the plus signs. It's sort of like two rectangles fused together. Perpendicularly. It's going to take me a while to upgrade the fairy portal to level 3. Right after I finished the Chapter 15 Spanish quiz, I went for at around 11:50 p.m. I mean a.m., 11:50 a.m. I went to the visual art experience room early so I could do some last minute work on the ceramic shoe, which turned out to be a wise decision since at some point relatively early on, the professor came in to set up today's visual art experience class. It gave me some advice on finishing up that ceramic shoe and in painting it. Hey, my hands were actually much dirtier at around 2 p.m. because at some point I used my fingers in order to blotch up tiny little white spots where you could see the gesso on the shoe with paint. And I mixed up a sort of light brown for the sides. These sort of sides. And there was also this brown patch, though I believe I took care of that one significantly earlier. In the end product, I could tell which one was the real shoe and which one was the ceramic shoe, but ultimately I think it turned out pretty well. I tried my best on it, and that's all that really matters in the end. Working hard and efficiently towards your goals. Today's African politics class, starting at 9:30 a.m. So after the first session, we're not working on my ceramic shoe, but before the second session, for which I skipped lunch today, instead settling on finishing off a can of cheddar cheese Pringles, and then later on, after my art class, I had some of the can of barbecue Pringles. I'm going to drink these two slowly after trying them because I've already had two of these today. One on my way to the tower building for my second painting session. And I believe I had the other one once I got back from my visual art experience class, and I drank it as soon as I got back inside my dorm room. I actually was given this Res Love Week flyer by someone who was at the Eagle Hall lobby right before I left for the Harrison building to get my dinner at the Harrison Dining Hall. on the second floor. Today's African politics class was about Africa and globalization. The discussion during which I brought up whether countries that haven't industrialized yet should skip right ahead to a service-based economy. Considering how that is something that could theoretically be done with all the various online services that have cropped up within just the past 5 years, and considering how these nations that haven't industrialized fully yet have significantly larger populations than the nations that already have, as I said. And how climate change is already a serious issue within the global community. To which the professor eventually responded by saying that's a good point, but eventually he raised the counterpoint that suggesting that sort of thing in a country that hasn't industrialized yet is less feasible. In other words, it won't fly as much as if you suggest that in a country that has already industrialized. This is a chicken soft taco, and the other two are beef. Okay, I'm going to be trying the tropical sunrise flavor. Tastes pretty good. And now the peach mango dawn flavor. All these different flavors of the Mountain Dew Rise Energy, they fall quite similarly with each other. I actually brought this with me to the second session so that I could use it to ensure that my ceramic shoe would be dry in time for the critique I imagined would starting at 2 p.m. And I did use it to dry any newly applied paint on my ceramic shoe, essentially, at least some points. But I made sure to move my paint wheel with which I use to mix paints together, in order to make different colors on the color wheel. For visual art experience projects such as the ceramic shoe, it was officially called the trompe-l'oeil shoe project, but it can also be called the ceramic shoe project. I'm still trying to ultimately find and accept a shift as reserve day desk attendant, but I haven't been successful yet.